is being presented here. And that work is unpacking uncertainty, uncertainty with big U, which happens from time to time, but also with small u, which happens on day-to-day basis. And that's something this session is extremely proud to be present in concrete work. And not only to present how bad the situation is, which it is, and we've known it for a while, both we see it with our eyes and we've seen that through research, scientific and social science and so many other ways, but also the opportunity for transformation that's taking place. And transformation not which is from the top, saying that you move here and you shift there, but transformation from the below. And how do you encourage the transformation, which is local, autonomous, self-determined transformation that is just and protects the rights? And that's something this particular action research project, co-creation project has done. And this particular session is going to cover that. And not again from, it's again a landmark that it's not going to present participatory work, research, which is very, very important and must be part of all such work, but actually bringing a whole new dimension in addition to textual and numerical, a whole visual understanding that how do people locally who lead adaptation and transformation see their own adaptation and transformation, and how will they represent? And that represent in terms of photographs. We have very good example. In terms of drawings, we have very good examples. Grown-up men and women, we have good examples. Children thinking about their future, which we have failed not to recognize. So we have very good examples of that. So that is what this particular session is about. And also it is not something that somebody narrating or sharing the visual. This is the lived experience and stories by the characters, actors, real people in the story itself. So welcome to this particular session. Laila was very much willing to join and lead this session. She has not been able to, and this work is a joint work. Please look up tapestry information that is already shared. With these opening words, I would request Dr. Salimul Haq to give his views and his ideas about the work which is about to be presented. I don't need to introduce Salimul Haq, but as my duty, I would say that Salim Bhai has been both, in this case, a friend and a mentor. And whenever you want to say something, think something as which is new and more important to local people, we just read up his writings and speeches. And here is Salim Bhai. He'll tell us about the role and importance of visual methods in community-steered adaptation in uncertain times. Salim Bhai, please.
Thank you very much, Vijay. And thank you to the organizers of this session for inviting me to say a few words. Let me start by associating myself and my center, ICCCAD, with this ongoing research program that we are involved in together called Tapestry, which is looking at the Sundarbans from both the Bangladesh side and the Indian side. So a very nice cross-border collaboration between West Bengal in particular and Bangladesh, and also with our partners in the University of Sussex in the UK. It's been a very interesting journey, and we hope to share some of our results in this session today. I think the framing of what we are trying to do, at least in my mind, is that when it comes to trying to promote the ideas, the knowledge, the experience of local level adapters, we tend to find that we get a lot of stories that people tell us that they have. Stories are definitely very good and useful particularly from a journalistic point of view, putting them in newspapers or having visuals for video or for television news. They reach a much wider audience. They tug at the hearts of people, particularly if there are bad news stories of people suffering. But the challenge that we put to ourselves is, can we go beyond simply journalistic types of stories? Not that journalism is not good, it's good, but we are not journalists, we are researchers. And can we bring storytelling as a significant and recognized form of research, information gathering, and presentation, uh, rather than the traditional, very academic research, which is large quantities of survey data, and everything gets quantified into charts and diagrams and graphs, and then you lose the humanity behind. So can we bring information which is valid, experiential knowledge of people themselves, and capture it in a way that will be recognized by our peers in the scientific community as being valid scientific outputs and not just journalistic stories? It's a divide. It's not an easy thing to do, but that is the challenge that we have put to ourselves. And in my center, we are very keen on developing storytelling in a wide sense as a scientific tool. Can we do that? And in the storytelling approach, there are obviously a variety of ways to do it. There is the voice of the people speaking in their own language, and then having that translated. We made an attempt this time in Gobeshona to allow people from the grassroots who prefer to speak in their own language to do so, and we've tried to provide interpretation for them. Secondly, it is letting them tell their own stories rather than providing the researcher doing the storytelling on their behalf. So how do we capture their genuine voices? That is another part of it. And then the part that we are going to be discussing today is the use of visual information, as we just heard from Mihir. Photographs, drawings, other kinds of visual information, even videos. Nowadays, people have smartphones, they can make video clips themselves. And let us push the boundaries of that technology and the ability of people to tell their own stories in their own words, with their own pictures and their own visuals. And then maybe help them curate it, help them edit it, help them bring it to different audiences. That is the role we can play by enabling them to tell their own story in a way that they feel comfortable, and not having it told for them on their behalf, which is what a lot of the time we as researchers do. That it's better than nothing, but it is not good enough. We need to ensure that they are comfortable telling their own story in a way that they feel it is reflecting what they want to say. And the challenge to us is to make sure that we obey that mandate of ensuring that they say what they want to say and we are not distorting it, but then also bringing it to the appropriate places for it to make an influence in some influential decision-making process, either a local government, a local MP, national minister, and a global audience. And the theme for this year's Gobeshona conference is, how do we get these local voices to actually influence global decisions? And in particular, we will be targeting the COP27 coming up in November this year in Egypt as a target audience of decision makers, not just hearing our voices, but listening to what we have to say and seeing whether that is incorporatable into the decisions that they are making. And so that's the challenge we put to ourselves. We will try our best. We have asked each of the session organizers to reflect on that question. What is a message? Do you have a message for COP27? If so, what is the message? And then let us think about how do we deliver that message to the decision makers who will be meeting in COP27. And one of the important elements in being able to influence is that if you wait until the COP to go to the COP and then try to influence, it's too late. The decisions are being made now. The agenda is being set now. So we have to engage now if we want to influence whatever the discussions will take place in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt in November. And that's why we've organized this Gobeshona conference at the early part of the year, just after the previous COP, but well before this, the next coming COP, so that we can harness our advocacy messages and target them properly into the decision-making process that will take place over the coming months. In particular, the subsidiary bodies meeting in Bonn in June, where the agenda for the COP will be set. So that is a target audience, a target platform, a target place and time that we will take our messages to and see if we can actually influence decision-making agendas of the COP and not just go and do side events, which are useful events for networking, but they really don't influence the decision. So that is the challenge we've set ourselves. I'm very glad that my colleagues and our partners have put this session together where we are going to share some of those outputs and outcomes and then see how we might be able to take them forward as messages to the upcoming COP in November. I'll stop there and hand back to the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salim Bhai. Thank you so much for drawing our attention to make storytelling even more legitimate research method. And how do we have visual impact how do we have impact through visual stories to the COP27 process? We will definitely keep that in mind and come up with something at the end of the session. May I request now Mahmoodadi to have
the icebreaking session one.
That's
I'm
right.
going to do that. In the meantime, I would like to request Sohail to make Shibaji, Anandita, and Adiba as a co-host so that they can share their screen. Can you see my screen? Niji, please let me know. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Oh, yeah, great. So I would like to request all of our participants to take part in our ice-breaking session. So please grab your phone or open a window and write www.minty.com and use the code is written here 11329994. The code is given in the screen, at the top of the screen. You can see, I'm also writing the code here. Let me share the code first. 7112994.
Mahmooda, perhaps you can also write that in the chat.
Yeah, this is what I'm doing now. 711. But I hope everyone is able to go to the Mentimeter. If not, please let us know. 711329994. So please grab your phone or open a window and type www.minty.com and use the code 711329994. The question is, what comes in your mind when you think about visual method research or visual research methods? Yeah. What do you think? What is it? What is visual research method? I can see a community mapping well, and then we are not getting any answer from anyone else. Can you please all go to www.menti.com and type the code 71132994 and write your answer here. Let me refresh it. I can see only
If
one answer.
anybody wants to,
Shivaji, you can also write the answer. We all are participants. So you, Adiba, and others
okay.
can also write. Well, visual research is a qualitative research methodology that depends on the use of artistic mediums to represent knowledge. Great, well answered. Anything else? Community engagement, yeah. We have around like 30 participants, but no one is answering the question. So I'm really surprised to see that. Oh, embroidery, photographs representing the content of a research. Yeah. Anything else? Well, you all can like keep typing the answer. I think I should move the next one. Right, Shivaji? Oh, we got another.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yeah, let me read the last answer and then I'm moving to the next one. Visual research methods would comprise a collection of methods that incorporate visual elements such as maps, drawing, photographs, and videos. Good answer. Let's see what actually comes from our presentation. So the next question is, what is your expectation from this session, like today's session? Like expect what is actually expectation like we all have something in our mind, right? This is why we actually joined this session. So what is our expectation from the session? What we will learn from it? Direction new. Okay. Years of the visual research to know the basic element method. Anything else? Let's wait for a couple of seconds and then we can move to our presentation. Methods, stories. Okay, visual documentation, storytelling methods, power of photo voice, process documentation, studies, execution of wear for cave. Well, you all can keep writing, and we will definitely consider all of your answer to our way forward. So, Mihirji, I think you can now continue the rest of the part. Thank you, everyone who actually participate to our icebreaking session.
Thank you, Ambudaji. This is two interesting questions, and people can continue answering that. Now we have a very exciting presentation by Shibati Bhai and Upasna ji. And the presentation is about the photo voice itself and how that is being used in ongoing work that the Tapestry project is doing on capturing uncertainty, capturing transformation, and how when the visual representation power is put in the hands of men and women, and in some cases children, how that is capturing the transformation taking place in three patches, in the desert areas, in the coastal and urban area, and most importantly here in the areas which are Delta area, Sundarbans Delta area. Shibati Bhai, floor is yours. For those who don't know Shibati Bhai, he's done extensive work on not only applying the visual method for various social science research, but also actually developing new dimensions to that in last few years. So we have somebody who's at the forefront of developing the visual method for the purpose that we all are interested in, which is local adaptation and local transformation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mihir Bhai. And yes, it's also the communities who have been really coming to the forefront in this methods. So I have before going into the photo voice, I have a small presentation on how Tapestry is embedded and embedding the visual methods across the three sites, and with a special emphasis on the transboundary Indian and Bangladesh Sundarbans. So I will request if Adiba can share the screen from her end.
Yes, from our end, Hafiz Bhai will share the screen.
Okay.
Hafiz Bhai, can you share the presentation, introduction presentation?
Hello, Adima. Is it?
Yes, it's
Is it
visible.
okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you make it full screen?
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you. And so I will like to begin saying hello to everybody, and many thanks to ICCCAD, the excellent Gobeshona team, and Dr. Huck for organizing such an inspiring conference. I will reiterate a few words on the Tapestry project and its focus on bottom-up transformation, particularly in its research with ICCCAD for the transboundary Sundarbans component. And the Tapestry project focuses on how the transboundary may arise in Bangladesh, characterized by climate change uncertainties, and that transformation goes beyond maintaining the existing system, that is resilience, incremental adaptation, and marrying it with migration. And that the climate change requires changes that are deep, that are structural, and all-encompassing. We are not focusing not just on incremental change or changes that can be maladaptive. Our focus is on justice regarding loss and damage. So next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Hafiz Bhai, can you make it full screen? It's not full screen yet. And the slide is also not moving.
So I will just continue, and in the meanwhile, uh, the slide can please adjust. I know I'm going to the next slide. So in the tapestry project, as we were saying, we are working with poor coastal communities on the front lines who live in marginal environments. We're working with fishing communities in the megacity of Mumbai, camel herders and villagers in the dry lands of coastal Kutch, and people on the islands in the Sundarbans, the huge delta region in the Bay of Bengal. Now, they are at the front line of climate change. Climate change isn't some distinct threat for them. It's a reality in everyday life. And Tapestry project uses their voices and as the starting point in our research. Now, these communities are faced with new uncertainties from climate change and extreme weather, but also processes such as expanding industries, and they're up against property development and pollution. They're not passive victims of these changes. They're looking to transform the conditions they live in. We are studying how these communities are bringing about societal change from below in their efforts to tackle climate change and other changes. So in all these sites, which we call patches, people are forming alliances, sharing their knowledge, and challenging powerful interests. In all patches, looking at contestation between knowledge regimes and imaginaries of landscapes and the role of agency and mobilization, and providing alternative transformative development pathways as praxis in a scenario of multiple pressures. So for us, co-production and transdisciplinary are key themes. So our approach is to address epistemic, the environmental, social, and gender justice, focusing on root causes of vulnerability arising from climate-related uncertainties, industrialization, urban expansion, and neoliberal forces. Research as a part of change, transdisciplinary methods of engagement, sharing and learning, sensitivity to politics of knowledge, making the invisible visible, that is, the perspectives of marginalized peoples and marginalized landscapes, to the fore, and the politics of what is made visible and what is not, how and what narratives are constructed to suit a select few, like the camels are detrimental to mangoes, like women islanders who live in the periphery. Now, they are being prevented from fishing in the name of ecological conservation, while the big sea trawlers are given permission to use nets that kill on the fish seeds, etc. The visual methods are an attempt to challenge these dominant narratives and framings. So our focus is on the Sundarbans Delta today, as outlined by others in this conference. It is a hotspot due to frequent natural disasters and climate stresses. Now, Tapestry has challenged state-dominated development trajectories that have tended to neglect the dynamic nature of the Delta and its multifaceted development challenges. Also, challenge the conservation focus, but neglected the rights and perspective of locals, which are somewhere, goes deep down and down the priority order. So we're looking at locally appropriate and sustainable options that can help expand livelihood options for local people, while at the same time, we're looking at sustainability of existing resources such as forests and mangroves. So while there is a difference between the Indian and Bangladesh, such as in India, people live in the Sundarbans, whereas in Bangladesh, they live in the French, but you're taking a transboundary perspective because ecology and rivers know no boundaries. And there we are also culturally similar. So even though these islands have only been inhabited for about 300 years by humans, different groups of Muslims, Hindus, and so-called tribals have created a syncretic culture typical to the islands, where, for example, the goddess Bon Bibi is venerated by all as their protector, irrespective of religion and caste. And these the disaster and the role of state and planning is also something that's going to come to the fore in our presentations. So I will end the introduction here. And is it possible to go to the next slide on photo voice?
Thank you, Shivani, by very good context within which we'll be looking at the visual methods. Thank you.
Is that visible now?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Yes, this is visible. Yes, thank you. So, in the photo voice presentation today, we are looking at transformative adaptation, expressing the collective voices of women farmers and salinity-resistant crops in the Sundarbans. Now, to talk for a few seconds on the photo voice, which is being done both in the India and in the Bangladesh sites. In the Bangladesh side, our colleagues have collected the data and they are fast analyzing it. So whatever data has come from the Indian side, we are going to present it today. And the so photo voice we had uh, is a is a technique, and it is a rigorous research technique where a group of women, a group of youth, a group of men, they have, they are sampled uh, like 8, 10, and representing the heterogeneity of the community. And so it's a very simple technique. The technique is about giving cameras to them and telling them to tell their perspectives, to see the world from their perspective, their worldview, and then sitting with these women or sitting with these youths who are co-researchers in this photo voice project and asking them, why did you think you think to be important? And from the photographs and from this very powerful narratives that we have got, telling them to to get them into slice them into themes, and what are the priority issues and what do they want to do with these pictures and narratives. So next slide, please. Yes. So this is what this is something that is affecting, and it's one of salinity resistant crops with influx of salinity and ingress of salinity in both. Initiative towards when the project was beginning is pre-COVID times. We wanted to document from the women of the Sundarbans, because a lot of cases the male has out migrated, and it is the women who have left behind and who are doing the farming, and they are adopting this new knowledge, new techniques, and their own indigenous knowledges in order to lead this initiative across borders. And there you see this Tangra shal. This is one variety of crops which was prevalent and which used to grow in Sundarbans 60, 70 years before the Green Revolution happened, and the high yielding variety of seeds and the pesticides, they came in. So this is organic, and this is something that can you know is resistance to salinity ingress and also cyclones. So these thoughts that were taken from of a Tangrashal rice field immediately after the cyclone Amphan, and it shows that it's still there in its own splendor and glory, and the women farmers could actually harvest the crop that year. Next slide, please. So it is about growing the crop, but it's also the sharing, the sense of solidarity, the sense of having those cooperatives, so that the knowledge about the seed is shared, and it is also there for the generations. And so when the cyclones strike and there is and floods, and there is you don't get seeds from the state government for a long time, or there's a shortage of demand and supply. So through these seed keepers, through these indigenous seed banks that are kept in the villages, they are able to they're able to sow the seeds and also reap the benefits. So this is one of the important pictures that the women group thought of taking to demonstrate the potential of indigenously uh, preserving the seeds for future generations. Next slide, please. So, as I was saying that this is, different shots of Tangrashal and so these are from different pockets. And this is also pictures. One is the flooding picture is for, on the right, top right is, after Yash, which flooded huge tracts of land in both the Sundarbans. So, and you see there are study, not only a study, but they had survived the saline ingress. So this is a little success that they wanted to document, and they wanted to go to the policymakers, go to the next level, and also to share at the global platforms that this can be done, and this indigenous sort of technology and knowledge can be married with scientific knowledge to continue with the agriculture. Next slide, please. So what we were, if for people who are the banner there, Mayer Mukhe Mati Kotha. So now this was this action research initiative, which was embedded in the photo voice and which has an advocacy component. It's not only about rich research data, but also in itself is an advocacy component which can be used as, Mihir Bhai has extensive experience of using it at different levels of and roundtables where policymakers and come in and the women actually go there and present, and it from the community to the state to the national, and now in the global level this are shared. So for this initiative for through photo voice, now we had to taken two locations in the Kultoli administrative unit, the block, and 5 women groups, all of them with migrant husband and father. So they have triple burden of being afflicted. Like they have to take care of in case of there is not finances not coming from outside the remittances. So they have to do odd jobs and also to continue with the small little agricultural tracts that they have. The first burden. The second is about looking at the elderly, and third is about the child care. So these women with triple burden, they are actually have gone in, dug in there, and identified the challenges of the intervention, what was right, what went wrong. And at this point, we had a small policy interface at the community level, but we are planning to have, taking those photographs and the narratives to the higher level so that people actually not only get an idea about the success that, and also but also about the pitfalls of growing the varieties as it is. Next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Is it possible to go to the next slide, please? Yes, yes.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
so much.
Now we can see
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So, if you see that, Indian Sundarbans is, and also to an extent the Bangladesh Sundarbans, there is a lot of tension and over land, because both the Sundarbans are fast losing lands, and also not only losing land, there are whole islands sinking. And also the whatever land is left, there is silent ingress. So there are three types of lands, you can say. One is a highland, in which mostly if you see in a community, in a village, the people on the socioeconomically, a bit more, a bit less vulnerable. They are there and their settled agriculture is going on. And the third variety of land is, which is like the one that you're seeing in the picture below that the women have taken. This is this is very degraded land. This is something that they know that in say 3 years or in 5 years is going to go. And at present also, there is not much one can do, not grow nothing in this place, or not have fish even because it's highly saline. So the fight or the competition or the resource or for the middle, the second variety of land. So there it sees a lot of friction and also a lot of contentions to grab that middle land. So so these people are, and most of them were part of photo voice, and they are already existing landless section of the community. And traditionally they didn't have lands, and so when the land is losing to for people to whom they had gone, and they had been doing this wage laboring and agricultural laborers. So when their masters lose lands, indirectly it also affects them. And so people, those who are gradually losing lands, half of them, or most of them go for migrate out or go to nearer pastures to do odd jobs. So these are also two facets that the women had documented amidst the green lush fields of seed keeping. So this is also a reality that they want to juxtapose with the other reality of success. Next slide, please. So, okay. So, the earlier slide, please. Yes. So this is something that were documented by the women, that a lot of this organic variety, a lot of the indigenous variety of late, there are lots of CBOs, NGOs, and in certain cases, state are also providing them the seeds. Now, this organic variety doesn't have the what you call the glaze. The rice varieties doesn't have the glaze, though they are more nutritious than the varieties that we get in the markets, and we are so used to eating. But they don't have that glaze, and so a lot of them do not find markets because there are no takers, and there is no guarantee that is given by the state or its commerce departments to buy them back. So even though they are able to get the seeds, but they hardly find a ready market or a minimum support price to sell their produce. So see, some of the CBOs, that's an interesting observation that we found. Some of these CBOs are actually trying to use that, get them into the share of value chain by marketing this organic produce as niche to the niche or niche sections of society as niche produce, and there have been efforts to export, very initial efforts to export it to the abroad, to so that the value of this organically grown rice against this odds is also realized. Next slide, please. So in a way, since the women had smaller tracts of land compared to a lot of people who have large tracts, so there has been a lot of time and labor that you have to um, uh, actually put in compared to other varieties, other high-yielding varieties. Uh, but the productivity is low, but at the same time, the input costs are also low. But to realize the cost benefit analysis and to realize the scale of the production, these women who have small tracts one if said that if the corporatives can be met, in which all the lands can be put together, and so the produce will be much higher. So these are some of the narratives that are coming out when they were discussing about what went right and what went wrong during interventions. So now that's all. This is the second one point is also a very interesting point where the households are back, bartering. They had gone back to the very indigenous variety, indigenous ways of of solidarity, means of coming together to improve commerce and for each other, for labor and resources, to in order to minimize the production cost and to make a better profit. Next slide, please. So through this photo voice and in a lot of these visual methods, there are issues which are sometimes remain uncaptured because sometimes not everything that can be shown in photos, but during the discussions, uh, it comes out very strongly in the narratives. So these are the two issues that came. One is the local administration is encouraging salinity resistant crop production because the local administration, the at least the the political, the local panchayat, the local self-government who are elected from the people, they have a huge stake. And in distributing the seeds, there has been encouragement. Now, still now there has been not a lot of movement in terms of marketing the produce. And second important thing is the conflict between the state agencies, the forest in this case. Now these are the lands of these women. A lot of them do not have papers, so they do not have papers to show that they are the owner of the land, even though they are tilling the land and produce for like 20 3 4 decades. Now, in case of there is a damage due to disaster, so they are not liable. They do not get any compensation for this tracts of land for their loss. Next slide, please. So there have been, of this initiative, there is a fair share of, the political economy, and one is the middle as agent of transformation, and so this is we saw it through the positive bottom-up community-led micro-adaptation planning, and also negative structural politics and financial instability in influencing the agenda setting. So middle is somewhere, still is not on firm ground, and dominant narratives of transformation, the successful climate resilient intervention. So a lot of the NGOs are into doing something because uh, uh, what is needed and not what the organization wants to do. And these are all very a bit messy in terms of because the politics of the region is something that is still is still in a state of flux. Next slide, please. I will just finish. Yeah. So next steps is finding, as we mentioned before, finding with pictures presented to the policymakers, and the women will highlight challenges to certain individual ministries, the Ministry of Women and Children, and then informal follow-up will be done with the participants regarding the actions taken. Sorry that I guess took a lot of time, but I will hand it over to you. Bye. Thank you so much.
Shivajibhai, this is very useful in both you setting the scene as well as giving concrete examples of what women, especially farmers on those islands, have been doing in terms of adapting and using adaptation as transformation, and also how they see this whole process and representing that through the visual method that you presented. Now we would look at something equally exciting and of a digital age. And what we have is Adibaji presenting digital diaries and the work that is done around that. And it proves 2 points for us at least to start with. One is that how digital technology, if we want to use, we can put it at the service of those who need that the most to represent their voice and their ideas and participate in decision making. Adibali, please go ahead.
Yes, yes, let me share my screen. Hi, everyone. This is Adiba Binte Kamal, and I work as a research officer at International Center for Climate Change and Development. So I'll be turning off my camera for having a better internet connection. So let me turn off my camera. I hope everyone can see my screen. If anyone can let me know. Mihirji?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes.
And thank you.
Thank you. So, as my colleague Shibaji Da already mentioned about the about photoverse, about one of the tool of visual method. So, I'll be discussing today about another tool of visual method, that is digital diary, that we are doing in this project. So, the team members' names are in the our left side. And without any further ado, let me start with my presentation. So, the title of my presentation is Using Digital Diaries to Facilitate Co-Production and to Understand Community Agency in both Indian and Bangladesh Sundarbans. So before going into the digital diary method, I'll be talking about the background of the study actually. As Mihirji already mentioned in the opening remarks, that the study is actually going on in 3 patches. One is Mumbai, one is Kutch, and another is Sundarban patch. And in Sundarban patch, the study is divided into 2 parts. One is going on in Bangladesh part Sundarban, and another is going on in Indian part Sundarban. And as Sundarbans Delta is known as the largest mangrove forest area in the world, and it is also known as one of the vulnerable area to many disasters. So in Bangladesh part Sundarban, it covers 6,017 square kilometer and has a population of 3 to 3.5 million. And in Bangladesh Sundarban, we are mainly focusing on the Upazila, that name is that is under Shamnagar Upazila. In Shamnagar Upazila, mainly we are working in 2 villages, that is Datinakhali and Jelekhali. And in Indian part Sundarban, we are doing the digital diary method on 2 grams. One is under the Kultoli block in South 24 Paragons, a district of West Bengal, and these villages are in close with the Sundarban Tiger Reserve and are directly affected by cyclone floods and high tides. And in both of the study area, the common hazards are cyclone, drought, floods, storm surge, sea level rise, salinity intrusion, and excessive heat. So the area that that is focused in this study actually is that covers the issue of salinity and aims to study adaptation, intervention of or transformative adaptation that are helping communities to adapt to climate change induced salinity issues, mainly to ensure food security. And this study also tries to understand how the adaptation intervention can be transformative and how methods of co-production can be employed to ensure sustainability of the intervention in the long run. So with that, let me start with a glimpse of what is actually the digital diary. My colleague Shivaji both have already discussed about the photo voice. And now the digital diary. Digital diary is basically a very interesting tool that is used to capture data from the field level by the local people, explaining about how climate change is impacting them or their livelihood or their daily lives. And it was used to as a remote visual research tool to conduct research during cyclone Amphan and cyclone Yash, which coincided with the COVID pandemic. And this tool also enabled longitude interaction between the researcher and community. And through this tool, the community got actually their own voice, like they try to share their story of how climate change is actually impacting them through their own language. And these are the some photos that we have got from the digital diary tool. And the first photo is from Bangladesh, where a woman is working in the craft farm in Satkira, Shyamnagar, Datinakhali. And the second picture is about a man painting his boat. And the third is from India, part Sundarban, is where women captured the picture with with her domestic animal. So these are the photos that we might think is as simple or as normal, that there is nothing, but this is the picture. Through this picture, the vulnerable community actually is telling their stories, their daily livelihood or daily activities, work life. So um, this is all about the digital diary. And why actually we use this method for our study is because research progress goes beyond the academic outcomes. Like, we didn't expect that we can have a such rapport building with the community through this method. Actually, not only us, they also enjoyed this method, because they hello hello
Yes, we can hear you.
sorry. So each and every time when we used to go to the when you used to go to the field, they used to tell me that you guys capture our picture and you go back to your place, and there are no other response or no other news from you guys that we get. So through this process, actually, there was a rapport building where the vulnerable community actually tried to tell their story to the people, and then empowering as less controlled by the researchers. Second thing, the third point is easy knowledge exchange when one-to-one interaction is not possible. As during lockdown or COVID restriction, it was not possible for us to visit the vulnerable areas. So through this digital diary, we were able to know that how they are doing or how their activities are going. So this was actually a easy way for us to actually know, and then capture day to day experience of the people. Like, a digital diary is usually method used is actually based on a individual, where he or she tries to tell his story of 3 or 4 months. A period is counted. So in 3 or 4 months, what he or she do or does, through this way he or she tries to tell that story. So in this way, we actually got the way to capture their daily experience. And then a wide range of data can be collected in lesser time compared to traditional methods. As people get what we usually happens is, we researchers go to the field for a certain amount of time, but as digital diary method is done by the vulnerable community people by themselves, so they take their own images, they take their own pictures. So through this way, a wide range of data is can be collected. And due to COVID, as I already mentioned, it was an easy knowledge exchange tool, and it was actually also needed for us to actually know about what is going on in the field level during COVID and Cyclone Amphan. And how actually it helped us. Actually, it helped us in getting on ground perspective, like how usually what as a researcher we think is totally different what they actually think, like how climate change is actually impacting them. So we got actually some different perspectives. So for example, in India, while doing the digital diary, one women captured a picture of her cow, and explaining that my cow is not getting enough grasses due to the salinity. As the salinity is increasing, there are not that much grasses growing in the field. So my cow, as a result, my cow is not getting to eat that much. As a result, the cow was getting thinner day by day. So that was perspective that we got from the women. This is just an example of that. And the second point is help to navigate our research context full of uncertainties like climate shocks and pandemic situations. And then we were able to understand the perception of the voiceless population, like the migrants, human households, heads, etc. In basically, when we usually go into the vulnerable places, we always can get voices from the men. We get less voices from the women or the migrants because they feel like they should not share. There are, due to some cultural social norms, they are not they don't feel free, or they don't feel safe to share their voices. So through this digital diary method, we also got the voices of the migrant people on the women households. And in understanding change over time, like as I mentioned earlier, that it is a period in digital diary, the individual takes picture of a period of time. So the period of time actually explains the change that occurs in over the time. And the method actually helped us to engage with the population at risk. As I mentioned earlier, the method actually helped us to build a relationship with the community, to understand their vulnerability and to understand them more, was actually helping for us through this method. And now I will share the case studies of Mosammed Fatima Begum, which we collected from Satkira Shamnagar Upojela, that the women that we can see in the picture, she actually explained us that all his this house was belongs to his father. Her father bought this house, but all her lifetime she's earning she's spending all her money to repair this house. She has she has no money left to her, so she even can't even migrate to other cities for better opportunities or better life, because as a cyclone is occurring on that region on a regular basis, so she has no other choice but staying at the same place without any money. So this was the story of Mosammed Fatima Begum. And the next story is from Suporna Rani. So what she tried to say through this picture actually is, this is a hope for them, because in her area, it is it is most probably one of the freshwater pond, which actually helps them to cultivate their vegetables and also helps them fisheries. And if they are lucky, then they can grow some extra vegetables, which in later they can sell it to the local market, which actually gives them some goods and services. So but in this pond there is still a slight presence of saline is visible, but and then they can also use this water for their drinking purpose. And this is a picture that is that we got from the Indian part, that is through this during Amphan and Yash, they had to put extra pressure on their livelihood, as all of the male of the houses had to go to other places for alternative livelihoods. So the women had to handle everything like household, childcare and income by their own. And this is the last picture that I'm sharing, is a story of a woman where she actually mentioned that two of her sons went to Kerala, another state of India, during COVID, and they got stuck on that area. They couldn't come back, and the two cycles of this in this picture are belongs to her sons, and she don't have any other way rather other than praying to God for their well-being. And actually she doesn't have any other way to work for herself and the family. So that's all. Okay. So during intervening the photo digital diary in the field level, some of the challenges, these are the some challenges that we actually faced. Was the first is the ethical concerns. The second one is the bias perspective. And the third one is bias selections, and the fourth one is remote monitoring and problem solving. As due to lockdown and COVID, and then cyclone Amphan and Yash, we couldn't go to field physically, so we had to work through remotely. So this caused a little bit challenge for us to run this method. So that's all about today from my side, from the digital diary, and I'm hoping to share more photos or more stories with all of you soon. Thank you, Mihir ji.
Yeah,
Back to you.
thank you. And what powerful way of diary or keeping a journal. I don't know what you call in Gujarati, it's called Nandini, something a record of your day to day. And again, this links directly with what Sarinbhai was saying, that to make this method a legitimate method of social science and other researches. So, very good example. Um, very good example. Now we will move to the next presentation. And this is very important from the point of view of across the age group, how the same method cuts across various age groups. We saw the gender, male, female. And I'm very happy to invite Anandita ji. And I think Vinita is not joining, right?
Yeah.
So Anandita ji, but the work is by both of you. So if you would kindly share the presentation on children's voice and how they have taken another visual method to show what they have. And from what I remember from the previous
Hello everyone. I am Anindita Shaha from India. I am working as a research associate at Center for World Environmental History Department of the Sussex University. And I am also the part of Tapestry's Mangrove School project. Today, I am going to share the unheard tales of the Sundarbans youth demanding a better future through transformation. Since last few years, I am working on the children of the Sundarbans, and during my interaction with them, I realized that co-literacy and co-production of knowledge is essential to empower the youth who demand a change in their identity after witnessing their parents' uncertain way of life. This is the basis of our Mangrove School project. And we have three project objectives. These are to capture the reflections of youth regarding the experiences, anxieties, and observations pertaining to uncertainty and climate change, to understand youth's voices, and to co-produce knowledge with expert opinions and get creative results. We have adopted bottom-up methodology to document the untold, unheard story of the school children in the form of oral narrative, painting narrative, and written narratives. We have organized two engagement sessions in two climatic vulnerable islands of the Indian Sundarbans, one in Kuntoli, another in Raidiki. And as the voice of the community reflected in the voice of the youth, so we have selected 12 to 18 years age children as our target group. And we were able to organize the first session virtually because of COVID pandemic, but we were able to organize the second one in person just immediately after the second wave of the COVID. And we have selected 65 students from two vernacular co-education schools randomly, keeping in mind the gender equality. Two types of research data have been emerged from our from these two workshops. First one, visible and invisible. First, I am discussing about the invisible data. During face-to-face interaction with these children, they shared their knowledge, their observations regarding local plants, flora, fauna, what they have also noticed some changes in their locality. For example, some species are disappearing slowly from their environment. They also mentioned the name, the Keto Kochok, one local species of tortoise is disappearing. And they also mentioned the number of some plant species are decreasing day by day. And they also mentioned that gold patha tree, we know all, it's an important mangrove species of the Sundarban, which is also decreasing from their locality. And they also shared their traditional knowledge that they acquired from their parent and grandparents. For example, how they preserve the dry food grain for a long time, how they preserve honey. They actually use dry red chili and bay leaves and kept in the storage jar, and used to change these ingredients after every 3 months. And they preserve honey by using dry red chili and black pepper. And before using these ingredients, they also actually dried these ingredients under shade. And they also shared their religious belief. They showed me their Bono Bibi Than, why they worship these local gods and goddesses. They also give tell local stories about regarding this matter. They also shared their cultural aspects like folklore, folk dance. They also perform some folk song and folk dance related to climate change and uncertainty. And they also shared their knowledge regarding medicinal properties of some local plants like holy basil, Arjun tree, etc. These are the invisible part of this research work. And now I'm going to the visible part. And they have produced artifacts which reflects their own thoughts, feelings, ideas, observations regarding uncertainty and climate change. They have given caption to each of their artifacts, and also they explain why they have painted this image. These are some reflections from the children. It is painted by a 10th grade child, and according to his own word, the one thing that really makes me anxious is cyclone. It is not just a worry of 1 year. Every year a cyclone hits Sundarbans and our houses get shuttered and we are evacuated to rescue centers with our belongings, the most important being documents, dry foods, and domestic animals. However, before we can completely rebuild our new house, we are hit by the next one. It is painted by a 16-year-old youth, and according to his written narrative, Cyclone Amphan has proved to be fatal for the people in Sundarbans. His own mud house was swept away because of the effect of devastating cyclone, and the old lady seen in his painting is his grandmother. She is wearing a mask that signifies dual uncertainty, Amphan and COVID. A 10th grade child who witnessed the deadly and brutal onslaught of Amphan has drawn this image, and he mentioned in his written narrative that many trees were uprooted when the cyclone hit the Ganges Delta. He witnessed that one robust uprooted tree was falling down on a public vehicle, and 2 people had died on the spot during the agony of Amphan. The child said that perhaps this traumatic experience will forever be etched in his memory. It's a very interesting painting drawn by a 17-year youth who expressed his anxiety regarding his future. And the caption is Dying Hope of the Youth. According to his written narrative, the youth study hard in order to secure jobs to earn a better livelihood. but due to COVID, they cannot find jobs, which is forcing them to lose hope despite being highly qualified. The image of the fairy and human skulls signify that every day their hopes are dying. A 15-year-old village girl has drawn this image, and according to her written narrative, not only the people, but also the entire biodiversity of the Sundarbans is severely affected by the recurring tropical cyclonic storms every year. And she said, we have tried to tame the nature through our unsafe environmental activities, and we are now paying the price. 10th grade student has drawn this image, and according to his narrative, many migrant laborers died on the road while returning home due to exhaustion and fatigue during lockdown. They did not receive any support or get any kind of medical assistance during their travel. This image depicts bleeding feet, which reflect the death of laborers while traveling. Their jobs have become uncertain as well. It is painted by a 15-year-old boy belonging to a fishing community. And according to his narrative, that fishermen often enter the creeks to collect fish and fall prey in the hands of ferocious tigers. Jobless migrant laborers are the new addition to this group. Every year, many people lose their lives while fishing. And he said, this clearly delineates how uncertain a life we live, where the main aspect is survival. A 15-year-old village girl portrays the daily struggle of her mother through this image. And here the woman is carrying stacks of wood collected from the forest. These woods are later used for various purposes like selling firewoods, building homes. But restrictions imposed on entry into the forest during pandemic have severely affected their lives. A 16-year-old student has drawn this image. This painting actually depicts various aspects of livelihood of the Sundarbans. In clockwise, in the first image, we can see the honey collector collecting honey. Then the effect of industrialization on the biodiversity. Next one is cutting down of the trees, that is deforestation. And the last one is due to increased salinity of the water. The fish collectors are in peril of losing their existence as the fish are unable to survive in saline waters. All the images are linked to one cause, that is the struggle for existence of all living beings in the Sundarbans. A 14-year-old child has drawn this image, and according to her narrative, that the available groundwater is used for agricultural purpose, leading to decrease in the water level. The water level depletion is one of the major reasons for drinking water crisis in the summer. It is painted by a 10th grade child, and this image depicts a rise in sea level because of the gradually increasing temperature of the Earth's surface. Image of the sand glass timers signifies the global climatic distortion and the beginning of the countdown to the end of the Earth and its change in color from green to yellow. 8th grade child has drawn this image, and according to her observation, there is a steel home. This picture has two parts. In left part picture, she said, this is what happens if we don't take care of Mother Earth. It will render both the human and the tiger without their habitations. We should look to a future which is beneficial to the humans and the creatures of the forest. And in right picture, she said, Mother Earth does not want to see her creation suffer. Here she is seen to be providing refuge to the human and the animals. But we have to take care of our mother in the future. There are some reflections of the school children. Now, the children, through their paintings, display a quiet activism by structuring the social context of research through creative doing in the way that visual methodologies do, by often taking the pressure of individual beings. The shared workshops with the larger community, local government officials, local teachers, NGOs working in the region, and academia will facilitate the making of connection and the building of individual and group agency. The children's painting showing solidarity has the potential to increase our collective power to express, to influence, and to expect a response. Now, our future plans are to bring the subdued voices of these school children in the public domain by organizing a virtual exhibition for the world and the physical one in the Kuntoli Islands of the Sundarbans, and also to draw the attention of our policymakers to the daily struggles of the people of the Sundarbans, which may help them in planning and initiating to act according to the children's needs and future goals. And Kirby note, what is striking to us is how through their art and written narratives that young people, actually they call them artists, have captured both. They are deeply embodied and emotional experiences of uncertainty, but equally a nuanced engagement with the complexity of how such uncertainty is lived with. Bodies weighed down by being uprooted, the familial bonds and welfare services that make such transitions possible, nature that is at once menacing and offers hope through Mother Nature, foregrounding of a relational animal-human connection in which humans have destroyed animal habitats and still the future of both are bound up together. These are images result in what Webb and Kirby have called uncertain pedagogies that invite audiences to respond in two overall ways to the images of text that demand them to situate themselves in relation to the art and the artist and what is being conveyed. And these questions are, what is this to me? What does it mean to me? How do I read this beyond climate change as a scientific fact? What am I learning from these artists that I didn't know before? And that it would not be possible to know if not presented visually. What am I to this? Where am I in this story? What does this demand of me as a human being, a consumer, a professional, or a citizen? The narratives highlight the uncertainty due to the climatic vulnerability of the region that affects the children's life and livelihood. Some of their parents who are farmers, tenant cultivators, barbers, masons, etc. are compelled to adopt alternative livelihoods to earn their daily bread and butter. However, even after these struggles, they are still striving, coping, and existing. This generation have seen their parents struggling for livelihoods, and therefore they want a secure future for themselves. They don't want to adopt their parents' occupation. They want to adopt some new occupation. All their sources of livelihood is threatened, and the pandemic has been the final nail in the coffin. The children of the Sundarbans want to live and die here, but they want to adopt new occupations, providing transformation from their existing lifestyle. They want security, they want stability from this never-ending uncertainty. It is clear from the untold story of these school children that the anxieties, uncertainties regarding climatic vulnerability cannot overcome their resilience for reimagining a better future. I would like to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anandita-ji. What a visual feast, but not necessarily all of that very happy, in a sense that they've raised a wide range of challenges that are being faced and understood by children. We also have Vinita Damodaran, who's put together this whole exercise. And may I invite you to please tell us more about this. Thank you. We can't hear you.
The credit of course goes to Anandita for doing excellent work in the field. She is of course trained as a museumologist, but she's also been working very closely with schools. This is a project that we've been doing since about 2016. And it's been very, very successful by linking up the Botanical Survey of India and schools in vernacular schools in Calcutta. But we've taken this particular school project for now to the Sundarbans with dramatic effect in the Delta. Because what we were trying to do is to uncover voices from below, but not voices that you traditionally hear. And Shivaji is here with us here, who's done excellent work along with his colleagues on uncovering women's voices and women's photo voices in particular. We wanted to get an intergenerational sort of expertise here and to understand voices of children. And they came across, as Anita said, with some excellent understandings of their flora, their fauna, and what those paintings show, and as Rebecca Webb and Perpetua Kirby have sort of understood, and their educationists, and we need to call them artists. These are artists, and they've uncovered for us in great detail and in great sensitive detail their worldview. You know, what happens in the time of the cyclone? What do people first protect? They protect their they protect their cattle, they protect their little animals, they protect their roofs, right? They've given us as the invisible stories that Anandita said of you know, how deeply they value particular plants. They've told us what's happening to mangrove seedlings, right, as they are crushed during you know, what happens to them, especially when you're building prawn fisheries and so on along those coasts. So the sort of nitty gritty of their existence, and they're so it is about familial ties, and also what they highlight is this multi-species sort of coexistence, right? How human beings and nature have coexisted, and that coexistence, I think, how one cannot live without the others, brought out beautifully in the paintings and in their oral narratives. I think their oral narratives are also very, very important. So then the last thing that Anandita ended with was what do we do with these stories? I mean, why is it you know, one thing is we see ourselves as in some senses as brokers, but that would be a crude word. What are we doing here? We are sort of getting together policymakers, experts to co-produce knowledge. So it's a sort of co-learning exercise from these children, right? And what they're also wanting, this is also an empowering discourse, because they want to live here, they want to die here. That's what they've told Anandita. They don't want to migrate to the city. They love the Sundarbans, but they're thinking about various ways of regenerating the Sundarbans through a much more sensitive approach to people, planet, and to their environment. And I think the next level of this project, where we are bringing experts to converse with
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. I think there is some technical difficulty. We'll wait for a few seconds. And Shibati bhai, after that, we have question answers if we have time, and then I'll conclude.
Yes,
Can
we
we
are
have
already over time, I think.
sorry, just so I'll just end there.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just end there to say, so they're asking for programs, for training programs that will empower them. I don't know whether Shivaji wants to come in here as well.
Chat. Yes. Number one is we are actually planning to share it very widely with a dedicated website on the visual methods, and also have the backward linkages in terms of giving it back to the community, as Vinita saying that we give it back to the community and getting the vernacular press and the local press across both Sundarbans interested, and so that they can also act as co-leaders with us, so that this initiative can be shared. So, do we have time
We can't hear you,
able
Shivaji bhai.
to take have a one yes. So this is for Adiba. Uh, so Adiba, can you read the Q&A or shall I read it for you? It's from Hafizur Rahman from Bangladesh.
Yes, what he wanted to know. I hope you can hear me, Dada.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So what actually Hafizur Rahman wanted to know from me is a little bit about the specific changes that were focused to understand that change that I got to see through the digital diary over the time was actually in the during the during and after the climate induced disaster, like after cyclone Amphan or cyclone Yash, what was the vulnerable community people livelihood or lifestyle activities before the cyclone and after the cyclone? There were a lot of changes that was actually seen and visible through the through this method. Actually, through this method we got to know that how their life used to be before the cyclone Amphan and now what they are facing, and they in most cases a migration is seen as a solution for them. That was the important change that I actually got to know from the digital method. And then Mr. Hafizur Rahman also asked me about the digital diary method implementation project, like what kind of ethical concerns were conflicting during implementation of the project. So luckily we didn't face that much of ethical conflict during implementing the tool in the field level, but in some cases while in just starting in the field work, we used to face ethical issues of people who don't want to come in front of camera, especially the women's who don't want to be in camera. So it was difficult for us to actually call them in front of camera, like how we can include their voices. That was an ethical issue for us. Maybe as Shivaji Da has worked a lot about in the photo voice and digital diary tools, maybe Dada can add a little to this question. Dada, over to you.
Yes. There was yes. I just want to add, we had faced one or two concerns, ethical concerns, which we tried to navigate. Number one is the choice, because it was a remote method and this was happening at a time when there was, the cyclone Amphan along with the COVID pandemic. So we had to do a lot of the sampling from remote. So there may be, a sampling bias that may have crept in, which was in the consequent in the second phase of the project we were able to maneuver, and that is one. And the secondly, it's also the case in for I won't say it's an ethical concern, but since it's a remote method, sometimes it affects the reflexivity of the researcher who is not being there able to be there in the field along with the participant who has taking this longitudinal diary, photos and also the narratives. Yes. Yes, Mihir bhai. Please.
So, Mahmood Appa, shall we conclude now?
Mahmouda is not here with us. Maybe we
Okay.
can.
So if everybody agrees from the panel, I'd like to conclude. I wish I had known Vinita was here. You should have then done the conclusion. You'll do it far better and far comprehensively, being involved in one of the methods far more directly. What I would do, and please correct at the end if there is something left out, but I wanted to be a bit naughty and not conclude but raise questions. And can we take questions as conclusions? And if I may do that, what an honor it is to be on this very cutting edge and forward-looking session that has implications for both the local transformative adaptation as well as for the methods of research for that transformative adaptation. So this session, I find that way very important. And on both counts, the session has corrected both our vision about the transformative adaptation, but also our focus, that it doesn't have to be, things don't have to be looked at only in certain manner. They could be looked at in many other ways as well. In many ways, this session has, Vanita, I wonder if it has decolonized the visual methods so far its application has concerned, and has given the power of visual methods, including the new technology, to the people who are affected the most. And that's the question again. I also want to question that has in many ways this session taken us directly to the image makers. And I mean both image makers as image, the product, but image as imagination and all that the image represents, has taken us directly to the image makers, not image takers, who are building transformative adaptation in uncertain times. And we have made it to an extent a two-way process that this visual method could do that. The next question I'd like to raise as a conclusion is that times have come to grow more deeper and catch more subtle and thus more profound visual voices, digital diaries, and what I would certainly call art that Anandita you have presented to us. This whole idea of multi-species coexistence and co-creation of that coexistence is something capturing that through visual methods is again an area, is that an area where far more work that needs to be done by representing the methods and outcomes that we have here to COP27. In this process, women and girls, we saw in both, well, actually all three cases, are storytellers, photo takers, digital diary keepers, artists, and that's something which generally is left out. I'm thinking of Shantiniketan and how the women artists there are only now being recognized and celebrated, not even celebrated, but recognized. And here we are that we see so much of art comes from there. So that is a question again. The session also helped us visualize and see the need for visualizing the politics of climate change and uncertainty from the point of view of those who are affected as well as those who are making all their efforts to come out. And that is something this session has done. I also question where are the stories from children, by children, that we already presented, but where are more stories coming from more locations? And maybe that is something that next Gobeshona and definitely COP27 can pick up and have that. The politics of visual world and visualization itself, the visualization process, have now become clearer after this session for us to work more on that politics. And this was very much a visual method session and climate change session, but I also see that very much a session on the politics of both visual methods or methods per se. And last, and I'll end that, is let us have the above that we've questioned, that is, I put forward, and Vinita, I would request you to add, if you would kindly agree to this, that we take this to COP27 and we find all the support and all the wherewithals that we need, and talk about what Anandita ji, you very passingly mentioned, but in such a heavy, profound effect, quiet activism or quiet visual activism, if that's the phrase. So these are the questions which came to my mind while listening to this excellent session. And I think addressing these, and of course many more questions that you have, and some many, if you would add, would be very useful for us to look forward. Thank you. Vinita, you please.
Yeah, just very quickly. Excellent summing up there, Mihir bhai. So I just wanted to say that, we are all middle class people. We have electricity, we have water. We're not worried about it. We go to these areas. So what, you mentioned decolonizing this method. And I also asked Shibaji and all to reflect on that, Anandita. So how do we decolonize this method as urban dwellers with electricity, with water? One way we are doing it is by bringing their voices to an expert audience and saying, these are the voices. The other thing is, and we are discussing it, is not to be extractive. This came out in the session that we were last week, 2 days ago in Durham. Because a lot of the conversation around visual methods is about how we are not extractive. Instead, other terms are being used: listening, relational, immersive, right? And I'm sure that someone like Shibaji is doing that in the field with his films. But how do you communicate that immersion as middle class activists or intellectuals when you're working with people whose voices have not been heard? And the other thing is, how do we engage with them on a turf which is not extractive? One way that there's been a discussion is, we get paid for our time. Perhaps they should be paid for their time. If you're asking them to join a training session, give them a per diem per day, right? Why are we just going there with our cameras? The camera itself is a very political object, right? You giving them the camera is one way, but are we paying for their time? The time they take to take your photographs so that you can present it here is the time they're not spending weeding or fishing or harvesting, right? So there is a question here for all of us as middle class, researchers. How do we make this less extractive and decolonize this further? And I totally agree with you. And then, of course, increasing the number of stories. Yeah, I think Mihir bhai, you've been again really touched on it. These stories have to come at all angles. They have to be presented in a raw form, right? As they present it, right? Without us doctoring it too much. And these are, again, ways in which our visual methodology, I think, can engage, can talk about. And I think the children's paintings, and I can only reflect on that because that is what completely overpowered me when Anandita first started sharing them to me. I mean, they're just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Vinita. Thank you, all the panel members, Adibaji, Anandita-ji, Shibaji-bhai. Mahmouda Appa is not here, so please convey my regards. All the participants, Hafizul bhai, if there is some way of sending them the email for participating, some had to leave before. So to them, that whatever which we can. And Sadiq bhai, Naushin Bari, all of you, I thank you very much for this session.